Alright team, how's things? Thank you for your time. This week is going to be dedicated to the Wembley Stadium show at the end of the week, Saturday night to be precise. We're going to be taking an in-depth look as the week goes on at each fight individually. Finishing off with the big preview of the main event on Friday night. But before we do all that, there's been a little bit of slight unravelling behind the scenes as regards to a couple of the fights, as I'm sure most of you indeed would have seen. Began earlier on, I think it broke late last night, that Liam Smith had pulled out of the scheduled middleweight fight he was having this week with Josh Kelly. Bit of a disappointment there, especially from my point of view, because that was, out of all the fights on the card, that was, I thought, the most riveting, interesting and most difficult fight to call on the whole card. There's so many different elements with Liam Smith's inactivity and perceived lack of desire against Josh Kelly's new weight, youth, vitality and skill. It was going to be a clash of styles and almost a clash of generations, but sadly that's not to be. But however, all things considered, I do think the substitute who's been pulled out of the ether almost on, on 5 days notice is more than apt. Ishmael Davis, the Black Panther, undefeated, barely lost a round in his pro career so far. Both men have a common opponent in Troy Williamson. Both men have appointed Troy Williamson convincingly. I'd say that Josh Kelly perhaps did it slightly more convincingly, but that doesn't mean anything. Styles make fights, as they say. Interesting that both men are naturally, or not I say naturally, are coming off long spells at 154 pounds. Davis has actually fought as high as super middle in his past, so there could be a size advantage there that maybe a natural size advantage there that maybe Josh Kelly could perhaps find himself struggling with. But Kelly has a tendency to be a little bit underestimated because of his tendency to go the distance in the majority of his fights. He seems to have this awful habit of judging his performances on how much he's hit rather than how effective he is within the fight. That's never a long-standing reasons for success. But say all that, he's, other than the loss to David Avanesian, which is telling that that is the most, obviously not because he lost, but that was the biggest fight he had in his career thus far, with the most amount of jeopardy, and he came up short in it. So until he has another one, and this isn't it, Liam Smith would have been the biggest fight since his fight with Avanesian, but obviously that's not coming to be. Instead, this is not as big a fight. It's a difficult challenge, an interesting challenge, a unique challenge, which Josh Kelly's going to have to prove to pass, because as I said, this is a capable substitute. This isn't a substitute who's going to be coming in with a 30% chance of winning like most substitutes are, 40% chance of winning that they give most substitutes. This is a live dog who's coming in to win, and he may very well do so. That's a fascinating fight the more you look at it. But as for the other piece of unravelling which has happened in the last 24 hours, is that Anthony Kakachi's IBF super featherweight title defence against Josh Warrington is no longer an IBF super featherweight title defence. It was broken today, around about 6 hours ago now from the time I record this, was that the IBF have ruled that Josh Warrington will not be able to immediately step up from featherweight to super featherweight and contest their championship. The reason given is that there's a rule that the IBFs have that a fighter coming off a loss cannot contest his next fight for a championship. The promoter Eddie Hearn has said that can be worked around. Again, that is a rule which I'm not going to call the IBF out on this particularly, but that's a rule which can be waived as and when. But obviously for some reason they're not doing it in this instance. Not that I'm complaining, I'm just saying it can be worked around and has been worked around in the past. Excuse me. So that is the disappointing part for me. I'm not going to complain about him not getting the title shot, but what I am going to complain about is the fact it's taken until this short distance out from the fight for the fans to know. Because interestingly, in this case and in the Liam Smith Josh Kelly case, that it was both camps from both sides have admitted that they both knew of this eventuality on Friday, and it was announced to the public on the Monday. officially to the public on the Monday. It broke on social media. Both instances were humming with rumours in the hours before both announcements. So, as you know, social media is social media. But the official confirmation wasn't given until late last night, and in the case of Kakachi's title defence, it wasn't given until this afternoon. So, again, it's not ideal, and you'd have thought that the IBF, especially they're dealing with an ex-champion of theirs, Josh Warrington, and he's held it with distinction. He's generated plenty of money in sanctioning fees for them in the past, so you've definitely got reasons for the fight to happen. But it isn't to be. The Kakachi's IBO championship will be on the line, but obviously the cachet and the X factor of a IBF championship versus an IBO championship isn't quite the same, even though I think you'll find that a lot of fighters will tell you that the best of the organisations to deal with is actually the IBO. Ed Levine, the president. Not that counts for much, especially with the fans. But as I said, disappointment all round for everybody concerned. Kakachi doesn't get to make his first type championship defence. The rule was that Kakachi, should he be victorious, will have 180 days to make a defence of the championship. And I think that's where we'll leave it for now, for today. And we'll start doing an in-depth preview of stuff from tomorrow. We've got a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so we'll have 4 days of preview material coming up. And so that'll just leave me to say thank you very much for listening. And as always, keep your gloves up and your chin down. Thank you very much. Goodbye.